Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to CNET's live coverage of Apple's education event in Chicago. My name is Jeff Bacalar, and I'm coming to you from our studios in New York, along with Bridget Carey and Dan Ackerman.
Hello.
Thanks guys for being here with me.
It's exciting.
It's very exciting. For the next 2 hours or so, we'll be taking calls from our team on the ground at the event in Chicago, and we'll be following along as the event happens, because guess what? There's no video coming out of Apple this time. It's just us. Lucky you. Now, this isn't a typical Apple event. It's lower in profile compared to the fall keynotes that happen every year, and it's focused primarily on Apple's involvement in education. The last time Apple held an education-focused event was 6 years ago in New York when they launched digital textbooks.
I was there for that event.
What was that like?
It was no hardware. It was just them making a way for you to make interactive textbooks using Apple tools. So
I almost have no memory of it whatsoever. Do you remember it?
I just remember the giant paper textbooks that I would buy for about $1 billion and then sell back for 35 cents at the end of the semester.
Right.
So I'd be all in on electronic textbooks.
they haven't really talked about education-focused stuff for a while, is really the point.
It's been a while is the point we're trying to make.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to be a part of the conversation, hop on Twitter and use the hashtag CNETLive. So what do we think is going to happen today? Some hints may be given with the invitation logo.
Let's look at the logo.
Right? Bridget, what can you extract from that?
We have writing. Let's take a field trip. This is clearly something that you might write with a pencil or pen on a stylus, if you will.
Okay, so you're saying that this will be some sort of writing thing.
Well, this was a good read, because I looked at this invitation a million times and I didn't get that
Yeah,
until you just pointed it out. And I was
away.
like, oh my God, that's it. The light bulb just went off, because you have the Apple Pencil, which is that $99 stylus accessory that only works with the iPad Pro,
Right.
which of course is very expensive. It's actually a great stylus if you ever use one. It's got really good drag to it. It's like the most realistic, I think, tablet writing you can get, but it doesn't work with the regular inexpensive iPad, which starts at $329, but you can usually get for about $300. That's the 9.7 inch from last year, and it's really good. And if you're in school and using an iPad, that's probably the one you're using. So maybe, just maybe, they're going to add pencil support to that, because it just plugs into the same lightning connector at the bottom. So I guess you could do it.
Would it be a number 2 pencil? Pencil 2, get it?
Oh,
Apple
okay,
Pencil
okay,
too.
okay, that's great, okay.
No, but I mean, if they were going to make a second pencil, yeah, it would have to have maybe be the same pencil, or maybe be
Yeah,
a
it
new
could be
one.
the same pencil,
I
they
mean,
just add
maybe they'll
support.
have them with an eraser. Who knows?
Well, so I guess like the thing that we should really be focused on is maybe perhaps that this is not an event where a lot of consumer stuff would be announced, or maybe as like a byproduct of their education initiative. So doesn't that mean usually when things get introduced for the educational sector, we're talking about a budget or a lower price thing, so that everyone, hopefully, in theory, in the country could make use of it.
I think it's true in theory, and iPads were first touted as being great for schools because they were so much less expensive than laptops at the time.
Right.
So you could give every kid in the school or in the district an iPad, even because they were only $500. But since then, I've talked to a lot of people I know in the education business, people I know who are teachers, people I know who are principals here in New York, and they say that their schools, and I've heard this over and over again, have moved away from iPads and moved to Chromebooks.
That's right.
Inexpensive laptops running Google's Chrome operating system, because they are, frankly, just less expensive than iPads, but more flexible in a lot of ways, because they're basically just web browsers. You can't install, the same games on them that you can on an iPad. They have very little, cost to keep updated, because they're essentially just cloud devices.
They're about $200 or so.
You could do 200, you could do 300, 400, 500, you could do a whole big range of prices. But the key thing is the school can just give everyone a Chromebook, and then whenever they want, just collect them, wipe them, hand them out again. It's really easy to do.
And it's all saved on the cloud, right?
It's interesting you bring that up. In 2017, a survey was done. Every 3 out of 5 tablets used in classrooms in America ran Chrome OS.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and another way of putting that, 60%, if you look at all the schools that, are buying devices, 60% are saying that they're using Chromebooks.
Right.
K through 12 schools, only 17% are using Apple products. and 22% of K through 12 schools are using Windows. So Apple's in last place. So this is a way for them to go, hey, pay attention to us again. They're going to have to show something, software, cheaper hardware, to make it more enticing when your school's already invested in a Chromebook.
Yeah, it may be just that 9.7-inch iPad that they updated last year that frankly we call the best bang for your buck iPad. Unless you really need a Pro, you should just get this basic model that they have been selling for $329. If they cut that by 75, they make it $250 or $275 or something like that, I could see that being more of a competitor for a Chromebook, but you still have to get a keyboard and maybe a stylus if you want to use it like that.
All right, so should we do some arithmetic then? All right, so.
You can.
How appropriate for school day.
I will watch.
Okay, so you said you can get them to about $250 because that's what it was during Black Friday.
They were
sales,
selling
right?
them for $250 and nobody was crying too much about that.
Right, and then so you're talking about the accessories that you have to add on.
Yeah.
So you want a keyboard that's going to be what, about $130 maybe?
If you get the official Apple one, you can get cheaper ones.
Yeah,
but
I guess you can get them for $60 if you get them off-brand. And then the pencil,
If you want the pencil.
another $100 unless they lower the price.
If
of
it
that.
even works on this device, which it currently does not.
So you're still getting to like that $500-ish.
That was the problem with the Microsoft Surface tablet. It was a reasonable price for what you got, but you had to buy the $129 clip-on keyboard. Otherwise, it really was not that useful.
Yeah.
And I think for school, you need a keyboard.
Selfishly, I'm interested to see if whatever it is they do announce today kind of trickles down in the rest of the product line. Like, I can't imagine them saying, "Hey, this $100 pencil is now available to every student." I mean, that is not a reasonable thing to sort of lay
You don't
out.
think they're gonna just give them away?
Yeah, that's one. That'd be great. But what I'm saying is, I would like this sort of new pricing structure, whatever it is, this budget thing. Again, it's all speculation. To trickle down to their consumer product line, because selfishly, I just want it's been a while. I want a new iPad. I want to buy one.
Well, if you look at history, Apple has in the past made a product just for schools. It was during the iMac phase where, remember those colorful, big old hunky?
Yeah, totally.
I had them in my school.
Yeah.
But there's something called the eMac.
Okay.
That was a cheaper version for schools who were looking for something in between. And they eventually did bring it to the consumer market, but other, upgrades kind of overtook it very quickly. But it makes me wonder, would they make something that is like, hey, here's an iPad for everyone and a school extra cheap iPad? I don't know if they'll even bother doing that, but I'd be interested to see that, because I think when it comes to helping kids, just making it something super cheap, the accessibility, that will help them take that next leap. It'll help kids. It'll help hook the kids for when they're used to using Apple products more, when they want to be consumers later and go to college.
And I think we've exposed a little bit of the generation gap right here. You had eMacs in school. I had Apple IICs.
I don't think I had any Apple computers in my school.
Well, that's because Apple always made deals usually to get with the school could buy them for cheaper, and so
of course.
And that was the mentality, get the kids used to Macs. But then we all had PCs at home, so there was a disconnect. Now kids are all having mobile devices, and so they are more used to using Apple products, anyways.
And if you get them young, if they're used to using whether it's a Macbook Air or an iPad in school when they're in grade school and high school, then they'll graduate and go to college and want to get like a MacBook Pro or an Air or something like that, and then they're customers for life if you hook them young. So maybe we'll see an entire generation of Chrome OS users, because these kids are used to using Chromebooks, and they go, oh, that's what a computer is. And maybe everyone will just be, Chromebook people in 5 or 10 years.
We're all Chromebook people. Well, let's look at the live blog. If you want to follow along, also we have several CNET reporters there at the scene right now of the event. It's taking place in Chicago at a high school called Lane Technical Prep School. And
why are there no kids in school today?
Maybe they're just in a separate section of the school for this event.
I'm kind of serious. It's
Apple's homeschooling them all today. They're sending Apple teachers to every student's
They're
house.
sending Genius Bar people to their homes to teach them stuff. Okay.
Well, I think it's interesting that they picked this school to kind of really first off, they're good at demonstrating, right, in a presentation, so they want to really make you feel like this is a realistic thing for a school. They are picking, though, a technical school, so obviously the kids here already have a lot of access to more tech than most public high schools would have. But I would say, looking at the makeup of the school, this is a magnet school. You have about 60% of the students here are economically challenged at home, they are available. They're able to get government funding, maybe free and reduced lunches, you know?
Okay.
So like money's on their mind every day, you
Yeah.
know, when it comes to this stuff. But they're also exceptional students who, you know, are high achievers because they're at this specific tech magnet school. So they're probably going to see a lot of stories on what they're doing in technology to, you know, kind of, you know, what the future is for them and how Apple devices can impact their studies. So I'm interested to see why they just picked this particular school.
They're definitely doing their best to make it very school-like. I saw a tweet from our buddy Scott Stein where Apple had given him a class schedule for the day. And
Oh yeah,
and
let's
it was
pull
set
that
up like, you know, 10 o'clock this, 11 o'clock this, and then dismissal at the end of the day.
Yeah, I have it on my screen
that
here,
could be
so,
causing
yeah.
a little PTSD for a few people out there in the audience. Imagine you walk into high school, somebody hands you a class schedule, and you
Yeah.
just like freak out, man.
I would just have a terrible kind of flashback.
Yeah,
and get all nervous.
orientation, general assembly, a creative lab, coding lab. Oh, so after the assembly, he's going to go into coding. So okay. So what does that tell you? These are some clues, right? Like
This is giving me Bronx Science flashbacks right now.
No, you're right. There's definitely stuff there. You know, I think it's just, it sounds like there's going to be hands-on with something.
Well, I mean, Apple already, what do they do in education? They have the Swift programming courses. They have a lot of iTunes U. Obviously, we already talked before about their last thing, their interactive textbooks. So, but the coding lab, that tells you that they're going to be doing a lot to show whatever in software-wise you can do to learn coding on these machines to help students.
And teaching kids to code is such a huge, you know, thing right now.
Yeah.
Even, you know, super young kids, 4, 5, 6 years old, are already learning that.
Yeah, maybe there'll be some sort of introduction of a program that they're kind of spearheading. I'm hearing that Scott Stein is live with us on Skype right now. Let's go to Scott, who's on the ground in Chicago. What's going on, Scott?
Hey, I don't even know if you're going to be able to see me or hear me on this.
Yeah, we hear
Really,
you.
really slow.
No,
That's
we hear
good.
you great,
I'm coming
buddy.
in slowly. I'm sitting down at Lane Tech's auditorium here in Chicago. We're super crammed in. These are student seats. So they're not meant for covering press events. But they do have outlets, which is nice. And I'm sitting here with Connie, who's over here, and Gabo on Espanol, and Gabriel Sama. And we also have, Lexi, we have Shara over here. That's about the general range of my movement right now. That's about it.
That's pretty good. Sounds like
And
you got a nice little comfy and tight
Hanging
seat
in there.
So Scott, what
you-
have you heard anything since you've got there? Do you have a more clear idea of what exactly is going to be going down in the next couple of minutes?
Sure. This has been a lot like an immersive theater event. I came in, we had a class schedule set up. So we've got some stations and rooms and presentations. We all got that first day of school weird feeling filing into a very classic Ivy League looking sort of school environment, saying hi to other people in the tech press and feeling awkward as we always do, but even more so because we're in school. And then we came in, there were some breakfast items. We sat down in this big space here. And I think what we're expecting to see, I mean, there's not been a structure like this before. So there's a presentation, but we also know coming up that there's going to be a classroom thing. There's going to be some sort of coding station or other classroom spot. I think we're here until 1. So, but it's very, broken down into groups. And we're going to have to see, how that feels. Move to station. Am I going to be coding later? Am I making robotics? I have no idea.
So what's the vibe? I mean, you've been to a bunch of Apple events. What would you say the vibe of this one is compared to the other ones that you've been able to check out? I know this is more lower profile.
So a lot of the same event staff, people we know, from Apple events are here. And the vibe is, this is a real school. So probably a little more quiet, respectful, trying to figure out our way around this different space. The vibe is very much like, here's the next place you have to report. So we went down these school hallways. Other people went down other hallways. I don't know where they were going. We got put in our zone. I think the vibe is, curious about why this school and what what the pitch or what the explanation is with that, how that feels different. I mean, outside it was super cold. There were a lot of pop-up registration tents, buildings. So kind of like other Apple events, actually. The one on campus down in Cupertino was a bit like that, and kind of the same people. But this is such a recent event. It feels like it popped up pretty fast that everyone just feels quickly assembled for this, and we didn't know this was coming, even more so than normal. And it looks really Harry Pottery out there. So if you look at those pictures, inside it's pretty relaxed and chill. But I see Phil Schiller's like a couple of seats ahead of me, so he's over there. We've got all the familiar faces at Apple that I've seen. So we're sitting pretty close to the front. And then, again, we know that some of us are not going to the same place later on. So we already know that our paths are diverging. Whatever
Just
that
like
may
real
mean.
high school.
Yeah, what clique are you in,
It is
Scott?
total high school. I went to the bathroom, so, it was like the faculty bathroom.
Oh, you got to see the, no hall pass needed.
Did you get an elevator pass?
Hey, Scott, where they put the students?
It's spring break.
Oh.
I think.
What?
Is it spring break? Is that where all the kids are?
I don't know where the kids are. Maybe it's probably spring break, right?
I guess we.
Like here it's next week.
Yeah, I guess it's different throughout the country, but that was like what we were wondering. Where the hell are the kids?
They're
I'm
working
just
the
going
event.
to try not to mess up their stuff.
Right?
Don't mess up their stuff. Be respectful. Maybe they're going to all appear at the end and say surprise. They'll all be here for us. Hey guys. So I don't know. We're the seats are really cramped. These are so actually I have an iPad now opened up, which is much better for my legroom than it's an iPad event most likely. So I'm working on an iPad. That's appropriate. And also because my live blog tool wasn't working on the laptop.
Hey, Scott. So, like, selfishly, is there something that you personally want to see? I mean, I know, like, we're kind of all anticipating some sort of, budgety iPad situation or educational kind of program that they might roll out. But is there something you specifically, if it's selfishly at all, like, want to see Apple talk about or release today?
Well, there's been a split forever between the iPad and MacBooks, and I've said this for years. I want them to combine. I mean, I just want some way that those two can feel joined, and I don't think that's going to happen here. But maybe they're just building out the iPad plans more. I do like the idea of putting Pencil. Sorry, I'm drifting a bit. Pencil into entry-level iPads so that people could use them to draw, and I also think. Who's there?
Oh
my God, Al
is
Gore is here, by
distracted.
the way. Guys, Al Gore is here.
Yeah? Look at that. Oh, wow.
He's always there.
What do you mean he's always
So-
there? What does that mean?
Yeah, isn't he always at these
He's
events?
right up there.
What's he doing? Is he
Right up there along with Angela Ahrens.
What's he doing there?
What's he doing? I don't know. He's coming to be with us. But he does come to a number of Apple events. There he is, just 3 rows in front of us.
Sorry,
So-
who is that?
Al Gore.
Oh, Al Gore.
That's pretty cool. So
That is pretty cool.
Maybe there'll be other appearances and surprises. I'll just turn around and aim that. So I also think I'll just turn it that way and talk. I also think that Pencil is a big deal because for art, for other functions like that, better keyboard support. If you're going to use these things to compete with Chromebooks, which have made a lot of headway in schools, pricing. And again, I just think if my wish list, I don't think it'll happen here, is just to make these iPads more like laptops for what kids and anybody else needs them for, to close that gap, because it's not closed yet. And iPads have advantages in being a little more closed off, and for education that could be helpful, but also it's not great for running, especially with browser environments, to run certain types of tools. I find it frustrating. I can't file stories easily on iPad. So that's, I I want the trackpad. I want the full laptop transformation.
So going back to the whole educational angle, we were just talking here before we went to you live in Chicago that most schools in the U.S., if they do have some kind of tablet, they're using a Chrome OS-based tablet. 3 out of 5 tablets in the U.S. are Chrome OS tablets used for education. What can Apple do to sort of make a dent in that disparity?
Well, maybe they could start by making. I mean, one thing I feel is that Chrome OS is out there, and there are a lot of Chrome tools. Maybe iPads could work better with Chrome tools. I think that's feasible. It seems so because you're not going to get rid of that market. I mean, and I think it's a very distinct landscape than Apple and the app ecosystem. I think some way to address that, to fuse it. I think Apple will just keep building most likely on the apps and advantages there that they've already got. And maybe it has to do with creating a better way. We were just talking about this before, and Shar had written about this, about resale value for iPads. Maybe there's an easier acquisition system for installing these in schools and trading them out for other models. I don't know. But I know that my kid uses an iPad, and I know that my kid also uses a ton of Chrome tools and wants a Chromebook. So, and that's something that feels more like a regular computer because it has normal web tools and a trackpad. So, and it runs the different free apps and software. So I think that's a thing.
All right, we'll let you get back, unless do you have something else you want to talk to me? All right, we're going to let you get back to getting ready for the event, which is set to start in about 5 minutes or so. Scott, thanks so much. We'll look to get in touch with you after the event, buddy.
Hey, you guys look great. Good job. I'll see you at the end.
All right, tell Al Gore we said what's up.
No cutting class, Scott.
All right, we thank Scott Stein. That's not an easy thing to do in that seat waiting for the live show to start.
Great job, and there was a woman right over his shoulder giving him side eye most of the time because he's Skyping from his seat.
Yeah, she was sort of giving him the stink eye.
Every couple of seconds you go.
That was interesting, Al Gore showing up there.
Apparently he's on Apple's board.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was just informed via
So then it's
Slack.
not that cool. Just so you guys know, the Apple event that's about to happen 5 minutes from now, it's not going to be streamed at all. This is really the only way you can follow along live, with the combination of this video stream and the live blog that you've got below our player. So you're going to want to keep it here for the next hour or so while this goes down. I know that's a lot to ask, but you're going to get the latest and greatest right here by sticking with us. So we look forward to that event starting in about 4 minutes.
Well, we'll be reenacting the live blog.
Yeah.
You'll be playing the part of Tim Cook.
The role of Tim Cook.
Bridget will be playing Scott Stein.
Oh,
and
good.
Dan will be an iPad. So we look forward to that getting off the ground in just a few minutes. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty, I've got like a lot of things swirling in my head about what exactly is going to go down, but I'm not expecting to be surprised in any sort of way. I think Apple has a lot of, like Scott said, has a lot of work to do, sort of catching up to what the Google platform has been able to do with education in the country. So
there are a few rumors and little leaks here and there from the iOS 11.3 now beta.
Okay.
Something I believe it was called ClassKit kind of was shown inside the code. Perhaps something to help manage apps that were designed specifically for teachers using them in the classroom. So we could hear about that maybe.
Interesting.
And also there have been reports of iBooks getting a facelift of sorts and just being called books. Because in the beta version, the app is just called Books. So that's what we talked about back in 2012, right? Like, they have the iBooks, electronic textbooks. Maybe that's getting a refresh. And to something that kind of matches a little bit more with what iTunes looks like.
I mean, that's something I see today as a parent walking to school every day is these kids, even though it's 2018, still have these gigantic backpacks on full of all these books.
Yeah.
And it's such an archaic concept that you have to carry these big textbooks to and from school every day. We're almost way overdue for electronic textbooks to take over, not just in colleges where people are definitely starting to use them more, but also in middle school and high school.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that I cannot believe we're at a point at where that is not completely eradicated. How that
It
is.
costs a lot. I mean, and then you have the issue of like kids losing their. You still are gonna need some physical book in the to like go fall back on.
I
Maybe.
guess.
But do you need to take them back home all the time?
Yeah, I mean, I remember there were initiatives to sort of like leave the books at the school and not have them be, lugging back and forth. But Dan's right. 2018. How are we still carrying around?
I mean,
30
I had like a
pounds of books?
25-pound backpack, definitely, when I was like
I
in
was the
middle
nerd
school.
who like had my books were so heavy. I was ordered to not wear the backpack because I was going to get scoliosis, and I had to have. Total nerd alert here.
That's not nerd. That is protecting your spine.
No, I had like a
rolly?
little dolly rolly.
rolly?
And I'd be like rolling across with my braces. Hold on, guys.
Oh man, that's an exciting visual.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, I do see today a lot of kids when they go to school, they're double strapping it with the
Yeah.
backpack. And in my day, you would never, ever, ever do that. No, singles, one strap.
Yeah,
in.
you
That's
wanted
it.
to do permanent, irreparable
Oh
damage to
my
your
God!
spine.
I already kind of look like this when I stand up straight. If I don't correct for it.
From
This
years of-
shoulder is like 3 inches lower than this shoulder.
That's
100%.
a problem. We got to get out in front of that for the next generation.
These textbooks need to be more than just, I mean, it sounds silly, text, because the whole point of the physical learning, like everyone learns differently. You learn physically, you learn audibly. I like to see what they're going to do to make it more interactive, to make you actually want to engage with the iPad more so than just like, now it's words on a screen so I can carry less. Because I'm a highlighter. I like interacting with my book.
I don't know. There's something about this whole sort of thing that I kind of struggle with from, I mean, I understand like where Apple's coming from, where they want to kind of indoctrinate an entire generation of students to become customers when they're old enough to afford their own, Apple products. But, I'm always curious how they walk that line of not getting, too sort of like, commercially in front of students. And I'm always curious to see like how that balance shakes out. When they're going for this.
Got some interaction on Twitter right now. Hashtag CNET Live if you want to drop your thoughts in. Tom Rule over here, he's saying, oops, I clicked on this profile instead. Tons of reasons why text won't go away. Students learn different, paper versus screen. Retention is key, paper rocks. But also his school has looked at Chromebooks, he says, and they found that like really too much damage, and iPads are harder to break in his school's research. So maybe for some schools that is something to consider too, because you have to obviously replace them when the kids are lugging them back around.
Interesting. Sounds like he's in the pocket of big paper though.
He's in Georgia, I guess. It's easier to get repaired with an iPad, maybe he says in his tweet. So everyone's got the different viewpoint, right?
Remember, this is not the only tech company that's really focused on schools and education and trying to get their products in front of students.
Yeah.
Last year, I think it was last year, Microsoft did a big education event here in New York. Where they talked about two things that are very similar to what Apple is doing. Number one, I think it's where they introduced Windows 10 S, which was the limited version of Windows 10 that was initially meant for education Windows laptops that, again, were $250, $300. But secondly, they took the Surface tablet, basically their version of an iPad, and showed off a lot of new education software that used AR for classroom purposes, like looking at like a moon landing or other kinds of stuff like that.
I love that stuff.
Yeah. And it was a mix of virtual reality and augmented reality using a Surface tablet, but experiences designed for students presented by teachers at this Microsoft event that we went to probably about a year ago.
Yeah, and just a cheap way for the kids to like pop on some cardboard, you think? Or
Not
like,
even that. They would just hold the Surface up,
okay.
and like the moon, like the Mars rover would be right there, and you'd be all like looking around it and stuff.
Right, okay.
Right, like as an AR tool.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the event has kicked off. They're being treated right now to a video of children playing. We know exactly where they're focused on out of the gate. Shara's basically transcribing what exactly is happening.
Slow-mo emotional music.
Which I think you can just imagine in your head just fine. And then she said there's some voiceover. A child says, imagination is the key because you're using knowledge, but you know to make something no one's made before.
Aww.
So we're getting real heady out of the gate.
That tug those heartstrings a little.
Of course. So, yeah, I mean, they're obviously really ramping up to maybe, inspire some creativity from children.
Are we going to see a non? Okay, we're talking all this time about the cheaper iPad. I mean, we got to see an iPad Pro upgrade, maybe too.
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe this isn't the venue for that, or maybe
Or you'll
it's
save
something
that for later. I don't
that
know.
gets sort of announced quietly.
Here's a
during
wild
those.
card I'll throw out,
Okay.
which is this guy right here, the classic MacBook Air, which is used by a ton of high school students and college students. Still one of the most popular laptops on college campuses, especially because it's the least expensive Apple laptop. It's built like a tank. It can last years and years and years.
Was it about $1,000 or
It's
so?
$9.99. You can usually get them for about $100 off. It's kind of dated. It's got this giant bezel here around the screen. The screen is low res. It's still got the classic island
He's not making
style
fun
keyboard.
of you, Bridget. He's just making fun
All right,
of
I won't
your
take it
computer.
personally.
But you know what? People still love them, even though they haven't really updated the design significantly in years and years. They gave it a very, very, very tiny CPU spec bump last year, staying within the same 2 or 3 generation old CPUs. But that just shows you the longevity of this machine. If there was a way to get the price on this down a little bit, because frankly it's been $9.99 for years and years and years, why not do that and give maybe not for middle school kids, but for high school kids and college kids, give them a $700 MacBook Air? Why not?
Right.
This is a prep school. They could be talking college stuff too.
Yeah.
So Tim Cook has took the stage there in New York, in Chicago rather, and he's talking about being inspired by children. Obviously, over the weekend with the March for Your Lives protests that happened across the country, sort of playing into the future of our country are these children for sure. So yeah, they're talking about some sort of partnerships that they've recently done. Shara says that Tim Cook is quoting the CPS collaboration that Apple partnered up with, and they're going to be teaching coding to more than 370,000 kids across the district. And now getting into more about the specifics of Lane Tech and its efforts to sort of be a part of that.
Lane Tech is the number 5 school in all of Illinois in terms of U.S. News and World Report rankings. I like to throw a little fact out there.
Good to know.
So it's one of their top schools, for sure.
And they say Chicago is the 3rd largest public school district in the U.S.
More PhDs come from Lane than any school in the country.
Huh. Interesting.
Go Lane.
All right. So yeah, I mean, kind of makes sense now why they chose this high school.
Yeah.
All this context definitely
it's
adds
very
to
diverse
the story
too.
they're trying to tell.
Yeah, it's a very diverse school too.
All
So
right.
I have students playing music in this video behind Tim Cook now, or his photo. We know our products can help bring out the creative genius in every kid. Of course, creativity they're going to focus on. That's their bread and butter.
So Scott is talking about how now they're going back 40 years, and they're going to teach a history lesson that starts in 1978. And now here's where everyone starts to feel a little older.
This is getting a little nostalgic for me. I see the old computers. We used to
Where are the
learn. You know what? I don't even know if we had floppies. They were definitely 5-inch ones. But we learned BASIC in I'm going to say 5th, 6th, 7th grade at my public school in the Bronx. We had a computer lab full of Apple IICs and Apple IIes maybe, and we used them to make our own text adventure games and little math games and stuff. And obviously a lot different from the coding kids learn today.
Was that your first exposure to Macs?
It must have been, although I think I had a computer at about the same time. That first computer is a famous one. It was the Tandy TRS-80 color computer, also known as by computer aficionados as the Trash 80. The TRS-80, which is, it had a cassette drive. So if you wanted to play a program, usually a game, you'd put an audio cassette in something that looked like an old audio cassette player that was hooked up to the computer. You'd press play and would have to play for 7 or 8 minutes to load up the program.
Yeah.
And then you were playing Dungeons of Daggerath or something. And basically, this is Ready Player One right here.
Sure,
Literally, all the
yeah.
references I'm giving you are in Ready Player One.
This is the first chapter of that book.
Including that game I just mentioned that I played and is very prominent in that book. Because we had a very similar, Ernest Cline and I must have had a very similar
out this photo.
childhood experience. Look at that, nice.
Wow. It looks like it's out of Gattaca or something like that. I want to say my first exposure to a Mac computer, I don't remember the exact model, but it was like using HyperCard. Remember HyperCard?
Hyper Studio?
No, it might have been. HyperCard was like a sort of like almost like a slide maker.
Yeah, I had one called Hyper Studio.
It was sort
and
of
on
like
the Mac.
very basic like page connection sort of software that allowed you to like create some sort of like interactive deck, if that makes sense. I know, exciting.
Well, like my first is the big floppy and putting in number munchers and Oregon Trail and any sort of like big program like that. But yeah.
All right, back to the event. Tim Cook is talking about the Everyone Can Code initiative. Really going over the educational initiatives that they have they've been undertaking for the last decade or so.
These events always start off with a lot of like humble bragging.
Totally,
like,
a lot of back patting.
Yeah, like, oh, check out all we've done. Just wait till you hear what's coming up next.
A lot of like, don't pay attention to the fact that more people use Chrome in schools. That's not what we're worried about right now. But again, like this is the preparation for the sort of push that they're going to be making during the event here.
Now, is anyone in the audience, in the auditorium, writing up their live blogger stories about this event on a Chromebook? If so, will Apple agents rappel down from the ceiling and remove
and just
them from
sort
the
of
venue?
like silently take them out, Oh, there wasn't anyone sitting here.
Oh, got a woman on stage. Shar says the fastest she's seen Apple put a woman on stage. She is Kathleen Richardson, who works with Connect Ed for Apple. She's talking about using Apple products, so basically classroom experiences using Apple products.
All right, we're going to wait to see what she has to say.
I will say, Lane Technical College Prep High School in Chicago, its most notable alumni appear to be Edgar Bergen, the classic ventriloquist who created Charlie McCarthy.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And then the next most famous alumni I see here is actor Adrian Zmed.
Okay.
From, of course, what's the Travolta movie with the high school? Grease 2, I believe. He was in.
Grease 2.
Also host of Dance Fever.
Grease too.
Grease 2.
He replaced John Travolta in Grease 2, Adrian Zmed.
Oh, brother. Grease 2.
Oh, he was also on TJ Hooker with William
Okay.
Shatner.
Now you're talking my language.
I'm loving these factoids. Keep them coming.
That's what I'm here for.
But it's not about that. It's about the PhDs.
Yeah.
It's not about these guys. It's not about Grease 2.
Okay, so she's not saying anything new on stage, but just about how schools have used iPads. It's expensive to have every student have an iPad. So you haven't had a lot of, I haven't seen a lot of like major success stories of schools wanting to keep investing in this.
And it's not just the hardware cost, it's the upkeep and maintenance and
Right.
IT costs involved. Very often they have a giant cart that they collect all the, whether it's an iPad tablet or whether it's a Chromebook or whether it's a Windows laptop, they collect them all and put them on these big custom carts, and each one gets like a USB input and a power input that allows them to be charged, allows them to roll out, like a blanket update to do remote system management for them. So there's a lot more involved than just giving a kid a box and saying, go set it up and you handle any third-party costs there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, maybe there's a way to streamline that and not have it be like this, hand out and gather sort of process. But, don't, get mistaken. There are definitely inherent challenges with rolling out something like this to students across the country. It's not, it's easy for us to just be like, yeah, textbooks are heavy and cumbersome and stupid, but the logistical rollout of everything is not as cut and dry as standard books would be.
They currently have a program called Classroom that lets teachers manage all those iPads too. In case you're wondering about, like, you can't just like browse whatever you want or download whatever you want.
Right.
There are permissions
Yeah.
that are limited on these machines.
And school laptops for years had programs. People come and pitch us on stories on these programs where the teacher could then pop in and see what was on everyone's screen,
Right.
or take over every screen in the classroom because they had their master laptop at the front and all the kids had student laptops and the master one could control what happened there.
Wow, they're really dragging this intro out. Okay, so Tim Cook's back, putting a quote up on from Horace Mann. Education, then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is the great equalizer of the conditions of men. Now, okay, so
Well, look now, that's all these are handwritten again, just like the invitation, which goes back to your observation that maybe there is an Apple Pencil
No, you're right.
announcement
You're
here.
right, Dan. They're just going to be teaching calligraphy, is what is going down here, like you said before.
These kids are all going into the wedding invite business, and that's what you need.
There is a dearth going on at the moment.
That was 150 years ago.
Yeah, I think like they're also trying to sell the idea too. It's not just like use our stuff. It's like you need tablets in schools. You need this kind of drastic kind of educational reform. So.
Now, do you guys use styluses a lot with either tablets or touchscreen laptops or hybrids, convertibles, 2-in-1s?
There is something to be said about what you learn in grade school is how your brain, you can always relearn new things, but like I physically like typing more when I'm writing, although I'm sure a lot of people who are younger are even used to dictating more.
Oh, yeah, that's
their
a good
entire, paragraphs.
That's a lot of my, texting is dictating now.
Yeah, my texting is dictating, but I don't know about thinking that far to do a whole like 5-paragraph essay with supporting evidence. I don't know if I could do that with dictation.
Well, that's what people used to do. They run to the bank of payphones in the courthouse and they dial up, get me rewrite, and they dictate the story right over the phone. It's coming back.
And also, I write down with pen and paper still in a calendar because I'm a dork like that, but I remember it better. So, but then if you write down on a tablet, those kids will learn that way. It's all about how you're wired.
I mean, there's a muscle memory involved with writing something down, whether it's on paper.
Yeah, so they're pivoting into iPad chat right now, talking about how students love the iPad because it's so versatile, and how it's become sort of a staple learning device. So we're getting ready for something. Whether or not it's a new product, we'll have to wait and see. But it could just be something more focused on the apps than anything else.
That's what I feel like. It may not be a whole new piece of hardware. It may be new apps for the current 9.7-inch iPad, which again is a great deal at $329, but you can usually get it for a little less, and maybe some sort of extra price break on that. Apple already offers educational pricing on a lot of their products, which is pretty good.
It's $20 off for iPads. It's $50 off for
that's not so good. I take it back.
It used to be better.
Maybe it used to be better.
But educational pricing, that's for individually if you walk into an Apple store and say, I'm a student. I don't know about the pricing for like buying in bulk if you are a school. Like that, I'm sure that's better if you buy in bulk.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm misremembering, but I want to say perhaps maybe when I was in college, the discount, the .edu discount was a hefty sort of thing. And I remember holding on to that for at least 2 to 3 years after I had graduated, when my email would still inexplicably work.
I'm sorry, Scott. We didn't have .edus when I was in college.
You didn't?
I had a Unix account and a VAX account, and that was about it. And I think they all started with like my social security number.
Oh, that sounds secure.
Yes. We played MUDs, okay?
All right, we're leaning into like the app stuff now. They're saying that nearly 200,000 apps are made in the App Store for education. It's probably something we knew already, but nevertheless. Man, they really are beating around the bush. I don't know, it's only been 15 minutes, but like...
That may be why they're not televising this.
Could be.
Because just like, hey, we make a lot of education apps.
All right, Tom Rule's back on Twitter chiming in what we just talked about. He works at a school, and he says they get the same pricing, $20 off. But he's not buying a gazillion, just a few hundred.
That's a lot, though.
Yeah, so it adds up. It adds up the discount, but yeah, I know.
Yeah, there, obviously a lot of visual stuff. They're really trying to glamorize the iPad learning experience, but I don't know. Maybe like have a teacher up there.
There are a lot of good educational apps on there.
Oh, totally.
You've got kids about the same age. Does your kid use an iPad?
Not yet. He's sort of like his first exposure was just watching a video on it, but he's never really like held.
Oh, there's a teacher on stage now.
All right, there we go. Now we're talking.
Casey Williams. She's a teacher from Woodbury Down Primary School. She's now talking about how her students use Apple devices.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he's held the phone. He understands, like, he's not even 3. He'll be 3 in a couple weeks, but he gets it, and I think it's a learning tool. I will say this though. I think a lot of the learning that is currently going on with him is actually from TV. I think and we grew up with Sesame Street, and that was educational for sure. But there are shows that his memory is just like completely exercised with some of this stuff to the point where he, and the instantaneous application of that stuff he sees and applying it to the real world is just sort of like, wow, maybe you don't even need to go to school. We'll just watch PBS for the next.
TV.
My girl learns a lot from Daniel Tiger. I'm
Yeah,
with you
Danny
on that.
Tiger knows what's up, man. He's
know.
super wise.
It's a shocking moment, and tell me, it'll happen to you someday if it has not happened yet. When your child picks up either your iPhone or your iPad and knows your passcode, and you haven't told them.
Haven't done that yet.
Dad's figured that out right away.
Yeah.
And then he got control. He has an old iPad 2, I think, in like a big rubber bumper,
Right.
and he's used that for years. He figured out how to search for videos by voice.
Oh, boy.
On like YouTube for kids. So he just hits the microphone and goes like, "Marble runs." Making slime. but there are tons of games that have math components and reading components and basic shape stuff. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. I think he's more into that than TV though.
Well, here's some examples of how our students are using it. They're not only researching, collecting, and presenting their work, but they're doing it by making videos. So they're presenting all the work that they've done in a class project using video on iPad. So being able to see their learning in video helps the teacher better assess what they know, it's.
That's an interesting point.
We always kind of joke like, "Oh my gosh, you're putting a camera on this big hunkin' iPad. Like, who's using that?" Well,
I see that all the time.
It's
yeah.
the student project.
And that's an important point of differentiation between an iPad or an iPhone and a Chromebook. Yes, you could possibly shoot some video on a Chromebook, and maybe you could edit it if you had a good online editing tool, but it's not as easy as shooting it on an iPad and editing it in iMovie or just trimming it in your camera roll and putting some titles on it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that an iOS device can do that, frankly, a Chromebook or other Chrome OS device would really struggle with.
So a new iPad is coming. They talked about how the 9.7-inch iPad is available to schools for $299, and a new iPad is about to take things even further. Now
Uses
they're
Pencil.
showing the Apple Pencil stylus is being showcased here, and that's kind of the big announcement.
And Touch ID?
Is that this new Apple iPad will work with the Pencil, and we're just waiting to hear exactly what it is. Scott says it looks like it's going to be a 9.7-inch
9.7.
iPad Pro.
Oh, interesting.
He said it looks like
Okay.
It looks.
maybe it's
And of
boasting
course,
similar specs.
9.7 is the standard iPad non-Pro size that they've
Right.
had since the beginning.
He just the quote on stage is the new 9.7-inch iPad.
All right, so I think it's just an iPad, not a Pro,
Right,
just
it's not a
adding
Pro.
Pencil support. Now the question is, do you still charge and sync the Pencil by awkwardly plugging it into the lightning jack at the bottom of it, which is one of the single most ridiculous, I think, Apple design decisions I've ever seen.
That and the mouse that gets recharged by.
Oh, that too, yes, yes.
So help me understand, Dan. The iPad, the 9.7 current iPad, what separates that and the Pro?
Here's an interesting thing. Apple had the iPad for many years, then they had the iPad Air and Air 2, and then they ditched the Air 2 and said last year, now it's just called the iPad again. That was essentially an iPad Air 1 in terms of body size and shape and features. They added Touch ID.
It's got Apple Pencil.
Yeah, so the new one has Apple
Yeah.
Pencil, but it didn't support the Pencil. It didn't have the same type of screen as the Pro. It didn't have some of the other high-end features that the Pro has. The Pro is 10.5-inch. There's also the larger 12-inch version. You can still get to the Pro, but that's not as updated as the 10.5-inch, which is the current one.
We're seeing one of Scott's old videos of the new iPad Pro, by the way.
There's the Pro, and I think we have a video of the 9.7 iPad from last year, which probably is what this new one looks like. Maybe it's Pro features in a non-Pro body, which is an interesting combination. I like that.
Yeah, here's a good sort of layout of what exactly is around. So
There
if you
you
turn
go.
that 9.7 into a Pro, what essentially happens?
I think that you add
The
You
pencil,
add
the pressure
pencil
support, the tilt support.
They're talking about some pressure sensitivity
Oh.
for the stylus. Okay.
Stick in the side charging continues, says Scott.
Yes. Let's see. Dimensions of bezels look the same as the current iPad. It looks like the same body, frankly. It doesn't look any thinner. They haven't said anything about spec changes. So that seems like it's software related. They found a way to get the pencil to work with the screen.
There's going to be updates to these working apps here.
Okay.
Pages,
numbers, Keynote, but that's not just for this
numbers.
iPad. That would be for every
Right.
iPad or every iOS device.
So maybe we're not looking at any kind of hardware update. I mean, it would have. Would
Well,
there
I feel
have
like
to be
they would
something
call
for the
that.
pressure?
I don't know. That's a good question. So
Yeah.
that might be the difference here, because the screen in the previous iPad, I think, lost a layer of they had like a one-piece screen design to save some money.
Okay, so here's a smart annotation. You see, normally when you turn in your papers electronically, teachers have to still mark them up, and so they have to print them out. And this is something where maybe a teacher can, actually, make little comments on how little Johnny's doing on this assignment.
Well, that's collaboration. That's the same thing
Yeah.
we do in Google Docs when we mark
Yeah.
something up, but that's super important, especially for school stuff, and we do it here all the time.
With
too.
smart annotation, your words will stay anchored to the words they were added to.
Interesting.
So I guess you can, it's like
That's kind of cool.
with a pencil, the same exact kind of stuff, but you could probably have a little more freedom, a little more flexibility to,
We see that a lot in the Microsoft Edge browser, which came with Windows 10. If you use that with, let's say, a Surface tablet or any other kind of tablet or two-in-one with style support, it's very easy to take a web page and mark it up and then save it and share it. And that's one of the things people liked about Edge in Windows 10, that you could do that.
They're talking about digital books again.
Oh,
Let's see. We have an example on here with a laptop, a MacBook on screen, talking about their interactive textbooks, being able to customize it to what your kids are exactly learning about in class. You can see in that example, there's a video they can click. There's,
no, notice they're showing a MacBook Pro here,
Yeah.
not an iPad.
Yeah, because it says they're bringing digital book creation to the iPad.
and they're putting it right inside
Cool.
the Pages app. So
I dig
it has the Pages app will have everything you need to make a digital book.
All right, well, that seems pretty cool on, pardon the pun, on paper, because it's essentially saying, all right, well, we're going to have allow teachers to maybe design curriculums or some sort of interactivity, customize that for their classrooms, is what I'm sort of extracting from that kind of announcement, which I think is pretty cool.
And
And
you
with
can put
Apple Pencil,
photos.
you can personalize the book with your own illustrations,
Right,
which
like,
actually,
this is yours, Bridget.
no, well, honestly, what do you do in classes, especially things like chemistry? You're sitting there copying the teacher, drawing things out. It's more than just,
Adding little doodles.
Right. So a teacher might have their own doodle that they want to put on a lesson.
Yeah, so I guess so what the takeaway is right now is obviously how Pencil is this sort of educational key that they're a lock that they're about to.
I mean, they really locked the Pencil out to just the Pro, and it was
Yeah.
expensive, and not everyone who bought a Pro bought the Pencil. So it's been a very kind of niche product. So maybe this is the way to get the Pencil in a lot of different hands. The question is it still $99?
Right.
And they have not said yet.
Well, all this stuff we're talking about, the iWork suite of apps, they're all going to be free into every iPad. So right out of the gate, you buy an iPad, you're going to have all this power. Okay, so now we're talking about the specs.
Oh, most affordable iPad, but they haven't said the price yet.
It's going to have a 10-hour battery with an A10 chip.
Okay, 8. That's good. Doesn't the old one have the A9?
Perhaps.
I'm gonna look that up.
Gyroscope, so it'll
Hey,
know
GT.
tilt.
Touch ID, they still have that,
Oh yeah, there's still a fingerprint scanner on there.
which could be important for schools in terms of authentication and logging in.
Yeah, because if you were going to share an iPad and do Face ID, that's a bit much and expensive.
I mean, just weighs just a pound. I mean, I like what I'm hearing. Dan, does this sort of on paper feel like it's mostly a clone of that original
It does not seem
9.7?
radically different than
Yeah.
the iPad from last year. I think we'll have to get a closer look at it to see, but I don't feel like they remachined a new physical chassis for it. They might have changed the display technology to work better with the Pencil.
Shar is
But
saying,
the other Pencil support seems software-based.
this is interesting.
Oh, AR. Ooh,
We're going into AR.
okay.
Before we get there, Shar said, with the A10 Fusion chip, this iPad is now more powerful than most PC laptops in virtually every Chromebook.
Little Chromebook, little dig right there.
Yeah, by Shara. No, well, I'm sure that was dictated there. But
Dan,
yeah,
we're getting to exactly what you said about what Microsoft was doing with augmented reality.
Yeah.
You're going to be pointing this iPad at things, and you're going to be seeing live things on your classroom table.
You can already do some of this with regular iPads, and obviously with the latest phones, they've been very big into this. So I don't think this is a huge leap. I don't think this has, the advanced camera setup that the iPhone 10 has, for example, that really does help with augmented reality. But you've been
an
able
art
to do
history
basic.
app is an example right now. But
that's
we're also
a good-
seeing
that's
this
a good
girl mess
idea.
with her. It's the classic science project of I need to make planets.
yeah.
and Mom, Dad, tomorrow I'm supposed to have planets, and you run to Michael's and you
Get the big styrofoam balls.
Yeah, and so now here's a girl like making it to the future with her
It's always
augmented reality planet.
It's the
always
same
the
demo
solar
that
system.
Microsoft showed off with the Surface doing an AR solar system.
Yeah. For what it's worth, the Apple Store is currently being updated, so perhaps these are something here could be, consumer focused, consumer facing.
There's something called AR Boulevard that is almost like a art history related app, and you can kind of imagine art hanging on walls. It says. Okay, another one being talked about called Free Rivers by the World Wildlife Fund. So it's not just reading about science, quote on stage, it's experiencing it.
Yeah, and I feel like this new iPad it's not going to be only available to people in schools. They're just going to put it on. Everyone will be able to buy it, and maybe you'll get your $20 off.
Right, you get your
With
little
your,
discount.
with your education discount. It was interesting to hear that schools don't get preferential pricing, even though they buy in bulk.
If they can get the iPad down to $250 for holiday sales, schools should be able to have access to that price.
Yeah, I mean,
the schools aren't out to do anything except to teach children and help the next generation become better than us.
If I were Tim Cook, dare to say, I would want a free iPad in every student's hands in the country because you're making a lifetime customer.
Totally.
That way. This is almost $1 trillion company. They could could
could take that
blanket
hit.
schools
Yeah.
with cheap iPads.
That's an investment.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then you'll buy a MacBook Air, and then later you'll buy a MacBook Pro, and you're definitely
Right.
buying an iPhone, and you're buying apps. and
Don't
you're buying-
schools have to now invest, though, in cloud storage to be able to have all their students save all this work, too?
I don't know, and again,
Especially with
we're
Chromebooks,
not
yeah.
educational experts or
Yeah.
anything like that, but like,
or even highly educated?
right, of course. I mean, look at us. But I think there a detail's being left out where it's like, why is the discount so insignificant? I mean, in major bulk, sure that it adds up, but why is it not easier to get these tools in students' hands?
So I see like they're still doing a lot of app demos, dissect a frog and augmented
Oh,
reality.
okay, the solar system, now
Look.
we're dissecting frogs. What else is
It's every
there?
school cliche in the book.
Can I record my school play?
Yeah, I mean,
Uh-huh.
with augmented.
Maybe people
Costumes?
could watch the school play with augmented reality and see like cool sets and costumes and special effects. Oh, I think I got an idea here. Let's Kickstarter this. Let's go.
Look, the AR stuff it's pretty cool. I think like if I had a tool like this, I would be way more into possibly opening up a fake frog.
Yeah.
And kind of.
I don't want to
playing
smell
around
that
with
formaldehyde.
it. Yeah, that was like the worst thing. I have such awful traumatic memories of that day in science in middle
Froggy,
school.
no,
This is not
Froggy.
something I want to do. If I could just open up one of these things through my iPad.
Oh, it's called
maybe.
Froggy
Nice.
Media.
Yeah. So the starting price for this new iPad 9.7 is $329, and the school price $299.
So it's the same thing.
There's your $20 discount.
Right. So you know what? That does follow the Apple model, which is the following year or the next update, keep the price the same but make the product better. They're not really big into cutting prices for the most part. There have been exceptions. But generally speaking, the next version of a product keeps the same price, improves the specs, so you feel like you're getting more for your money, but they don't have to lower prices overall, which is something I think we all know Apple is loath to do, to lower prices in general.
Right.
If you have an iPad right now, you can download these iWorks updates today. And right now they're talking about GarageBand updates for kid sounds. So it was a kid sound pack, I guess, to be a little silly
Nice.
and goofy.
So
And
GarageBand is pretty awesome for kids,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah. So Dan, as a consumer, you see the new layout, you see the new updated specs on the 9.7. Is this a good buy?
It's the one that we had last year, the 9.7-inch iPad, which again was $329. Really stood out as not super exciting, but just a great value if you wanted a high-end tablet experience. Because the only other step was getting the Pro, which is just so much more expensive. I think it starts at like $600 or something like that. So the fact that they've added pencil support and a bunch of other things, it seems a little bit better than last year's at the same price, which is the Apple model. If you're going to buy an iPad, unless you really need something the Pro has, which used to be pencil support, I feel like this is the one to get. That said, there are other tablets that are less expensive and do a lot of the same stuff. I think the Amazon Fire HD10 is a great alternative if you just want to basically watch movies and play some games on your tablet. It's usually $150 maybe. I think they have a lot of sales on that. It's not as good as an iPad, 100%, but pretty darn good, and it's half the price.
Apple, they're not talking about what they do for when students are sharing an iPad, because not every school is going to have one iPad per kid. That's a little bit of, it depends on the school you go to, right? But they have something called Apple School Manager, where an Apple ID can be created in bulk. You can create IDs for a school of 1,500 kids in less than a minute. My graduating class was 2,000, so I went to a big school, so my school would definitely have needed to share iPads.
This is actually a banner moment here. This is a feature people have been asking for years and years and years, the ability to have different accounts on an iOS device and log people in and out so you get your preferences and your information and your apps and stuff. The fact that they're using schools as an excuse to add this is actually pretty awesome if everybody can get this.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. They're sneaking it in under the guise of school management, but at the end of the day, it is profile swapping and an Apple ID swapping on a single device. I hope so, Dan.
Apparently, though, they have had this for school users for a while as part of an Apple Classroom app, but clearly it's not widely spread.
I was asking about storage. Schools get for free 200 gigabytes of iCloud. I don't know
storage.
I don't know if that's per certain.
Yeah, like that's per iPad as opposed to the 5 gigs that you get now, which consumers I think still only get the 5.
So Logitech, they're talking about Logitech's new kid iPad case and a $49 pencil alternative called Crayon.
Nice.
I don't know if it has the exact same features.
Probably not.
But if it's half the price of a pencil.
But the fact that they're opening up the stylus game to third-party companies is really interesting. Who knows how many knockoff pencils we'll see now, and whatever. You'd probably get a $10 one within 2 months.
I'm not seeing any new features in that pencil either. It's just the current pencil.
No, that's the same pencil. The pencil's really good though.
Is it? I mean,
yeah,
it's good,
people love it.
not
a lot of people have it, but the people who have it love it.
I made my little because I know that it's been so much time since Microsoft's Pen has had an eraser, and I always wonder, why. But I guess
just
that's
flip
how
it around.
I know,
you can just press a button in the app and use the tip as the eraser. But we've had comic book artists in here. We've had animators in here, designers, and had them test drive the iPad Pro with the pencil, the Microsoft Surface Pro with the Microsoft Pen, things like Microsoft's big giant Surface that looks like a drafting table, and a few other things, and they're all good, but definitely the pencil had its fans. It has a certain the tip of the pencil and the screen of the iPad Pro, and I don't know if this would be the same with the screen on the regular iPad, there's a certain drag to it that really does feel like a pencil. I found the Microsoft Pen to be very usable in a lot of ways in terms of very fine control and that rubbery tip that really gives you a nice ability to really control the strokes. But the pencil had this realistic kind of like graphite on paper drag that I don't think anyone else has matched, because if you look at the pencil, I wish we had one right here, I could show you, it's just a plain plate. There's no little rubber end on the tip. So it's a different feel from 99% of the other styli that I've tried.
Yeah, I wonder if Scott will be able to confirm whether or not that's the case after he's had some.
He will be elbowing his way through the demo room.
And to compare it with the crayon now. Now they got a pencil and they got a crayon.
I kind of dig this.
So they're pivoting to talking about having tools for teachers now, and this was something we sort of predicted a few minutes ago, where we were saying, all right, well, creating syllabuses and curriculum for teachers, it seems like they're getting serviced with a classroom app that will allow teachers to sort of keep their students focused and kind of track progress.
And that's a lot like we were talking about before, where the Windows school laptops had a teacher program and the students all had the student program, and the teacher could either see what was on the screen, take over the student screen, take any student screen and share it to the rest of the classroom. That sort of systemic control within like a 20 or 30 person classroom setting.
The classroom has existed, but the news here is that the classroom is now available on the Mac. So
Right.
if you're the teacher with your Mac, you can kind of tap into it and not just be using an iPad yourself.
That's right. The brand new app that they are debuting is called Schoolwork. And that is a free cloud-based app that makes it easy to assign handouts and to tap into the power of the apps that make that are able to track sort of each student's progress.
That sounds fun. Let's make an app called Schoolwork.
Yeah. Did you do your schoolwork? That's what's going to
Better
happen.
go download Schoolwork.
Why don't they just call it homework? Why don't they just call it awful homework?
Like check your schoolwork app for your homework.
Yeah, so that, look, this is definitely educationally empowering, so that's pretty cool.
It's literally as easy as sending an email. That's how most communication is now. So they're just trying to give you. It's almost like Slack for kids.
I know, yeah.
Oh no!
Don't ever say that
What a
sentence again.
nightmare world you've created for us.
Dark future Bridget is what we're
Now
gonna
I
call
can't
you.
stop thinking about Slack for kids.
To me, it's just funny how it's just basically like the digitizing of all the analogs that we had when we were in school, like the Xerox, worksheets and whatnot, and
The copy of copies that is like faded. Yeah.
Schools, especially public schools, they're so caught in the middle right now between the digital world
Yeah, the
and that kind of
transition.
vintage retro paper world. So you could be in one class one year and the teacher has a great email list and sends out stuff or has some sort of cloud sharing account that everybody can get their materials from. And then the kid in the next classroom over could have a teacher who has no idea how to do any of that stuff, and they just get mimeographed off-center pages sent home crammed in a backpack every day. Or if you go to the school office, you still have to write down a note on a scrap of paper and leave it in a metal mail tin somewhere next to the time card clock that they still punch in and out of.
The digital divide is real, and your opportunities are what tools are in front of you. Even students who require this homework to take home, if they don't have an iPad to take home, and they have no computer at home, what are they going? They're going to the library, which is also underfunded. It closes in 2 hours, and then whatever you can do there. So yeah, all these things, it's fantastic, it's great, but you have to also hope that it can be in their lives throughout their day and when they have homework to take home too.
And that's why I think this 200 gigs of iCloud storage is so important, because one of the big advantages that Chromebooks and Chrome OS has is even if you're not taking that unit home with you at night, you can access all of your stuff from any computer just by logging into your Gmail account, whether that's at a library, whether that's at home, whether it's your parents' work computer, their home computer, a PC, a Mac, even a phone, really anything, you can get to your stuff and it's all there in the cloud.
So what Apple really is pitching is basically a transformation of the entire classroom teacher-student experience. They seem to have designed a workflow that would essentially replace all analog elements of everyday school life.
And once we had robot teachers, let me tell you.
Now we're talking. And then that's when they bring out the new robo teacher, Siri.
I want Animoji teachers.
No, I do not want that. I do not want that, and thank God they are not leading with Animoji teachers.
All right, we're talking about ClassKit now. That's what we thought we saw in the beta version of 11.3. This is the API that allows all these hook-ins to the schoolwork system. So all these apps can connect into the main schoolwork hub, I guess. It seems that schoolwork is the hub, if I'm reading this right. It does look a little bit layered, so it's hard to kind of piece it all together.
And it's not coming until June.
Right, so schoolwork will be available in June.
The same time as the classroom app for Mac.
You just said robot teacher. There is something called Apple Teacher. It's our free and self-paced online professional learning program.
Okay.
For teachers.
Easy
teacher
there.
training.
Easy there. We got to tread lightly. Schoolwork, yeah. So Shara says schoolwork available in June, and then Scott adds that essentially this is their Apple's big answer to Chrome and its sort of software ecosystem.
Sure. And remember, Apple had an early head start in this market, starting, frankly, 8 years ago in 2010 with the first iPads. Everyone said, oh, a $500 computer-like device we can put in schools, that's great. But then over the years, they were totally eclipsed, first by cheap Windows laptops, then by Chromebooks, which ran the Chrome OS system. Is it too late to go back now? Are school districts so invested in these other products that they get through Dell or HP or Lenovo or whoever else, all of whom make education Chromebooks that are frankly often ruggedized, which these kids really need. This does not look like it. You'd have to get like a big rubber bumper cover or something. Is it too late? Apple often gets into markets years after everyone else because they're waiting for the right time. You know, we're adding a big screen phone now. We're adding this feature. We're adding facial recognition years after everybody else, but it's still the best version. And everyone goes, oh, that's great. For schools, is it too late? Are schools already overinvested in Chromebooks and reluctant to switch?
You know what you've done to me now. You've created a dark future. This is where we enter the Black Mirror episode. No. So we got Slack for Kids, Animoji teachers, and now when you're looking to buy a new home in a school district, you'll want to see if that school is iOS or Android.
Or Chrome OS.
No.
Yes.
It's true, though.
Listen, why is this house so cheap? The school district, it's a Windows 10
It's a Windows 10 school. They'll never dig themselves out of that mess. Yeah, that Black Mirror.
Just burn your house for the insurance money now.
Oh, God.
Oh, sad comment from Laura at CNET. All this has me thinking schoolwork hanging on the fridge at home is going to be a thing of the past.
No,
I think it already
your
is.
smart fridge will have
the
room.
screen on it.
Yeah, we're fine.
But that's a Samsung. Oh, no.
Oh, no. Guess what, Billy? Your schoolwork can't show up on the fridge. It used to be easier. Can't do it now. I'm sorry.
Do what I did years ago. Get 4 of those cheap, what are the 3M, the little plastic hooks.
Yeah.
With the elastic thing you pull and it pops off. Stick 2 down here, 2 up here on your refrigerator. You slide the iPad right in. That was the first iPad wall mount I think I hacked many, 7 or 8 years ago. I just put some of these little hooks up, plastic hooks I got at Lowe's, and just slid my iPad in. I was like, look, I made a wall mount.
That's just not what I'm looking forward to having to do. What else is happening here, Bridge? You look like something's caught your attention.
Well, I'm just kind of poking around on what people are saying on Twitter, but in general, back in the live show, we got another woman on stage. She's from a school in Baton Rouge, talking about how Apple Teacher and her experience using Apple Teacher. So it looks like some folks have been able to use it already. It's changing how they're kind of doing their curriculums, it sounds like. The learning is more student-centered because they're all like around the computer and creating things. I think that's fun.
I see one of them earned a badge for Pages in iPad by doing the Apple Teacher training.
Oh, yeah.
So we've added gamification to
education.
Apple iPad teacher training.
Yeah, the teacher side, it did say has badges, and you can see how you can get examples though from other teachers, so you're not like alone in your quest for more badges. You can kind of get examples from what others are doing.
And we're not knocking badges in school. I mean, stickers and check pluses
Teachers
have been around
but
forever.
for
stickers
teachers too?
Teachers need some stickers too. They need a little.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Look, hey,
I
I'm not
think-
judging. I'm not above that.
That's great. What I don't see here is something that's an interesting topic that I think people are talking about more and more, which is remote learning, like actually conducting classes remotely. There are a ton of startups that are very invested in that. There's Khan Academy, obviously very big in that.
Well, this is a little different than what you're talking about with iTunes U, though, right? I mean, that is in one way remote learning.
It is.
But it's not necessarily live, I don't think.
Could you use your iPad to tune into the class if you're homesick for the day or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I guess surprisingly absent. You would think.
Or do a classroom exchange with students in another country or another city.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that's not something they're considering. I mean, to me that sounds like a feature that they would have to run by the school, but.
Well, I see a lot of students actually, and teachers make their own versions of that, and they'll just use Skype to make that happen on their own. But yeah, as far as a program to make that easy, right? That isn't.
Bring in a guest teacher, guest lecturer, and it just pops up on everyone's iPads of the class. That sounds pretty awesome.
better than a substitute who doesn't know the material.
Today's special guest, Jeff Bacala, coming to you live from New Jersey.
And they just
Then
sort
you
of
just pop
appear
up on
on their
everybody's screen.
screen.
Yeah.
And we're talking about teaching kids how to code, the Swift app. And they definitely have been doing a lot here already, with Swift playgrounds, making it easy with the programming language. And of course, get more kids to program on Apple devices makes more future Apple product things. Start them young.
I feel like we're getting a real flavor of the event here, even though Apple is not actually streaming it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I understand why they didn't choose to stream it, but it is sort of like a very. To me, they're pitching the country where it's like, hey, this is what we want to do to change the way you teach, or at least aid the way you teach.
And it's not the most action-packed or hardware-filled or feature-filled Apple event ever, but I kind of like the crayon, the third-party Apple Pencil from
I'm
Logitech.
really into
That's
that
kind
for
of cool.
only like $50 or so.
Yeah.
I'm really into that. That's half the price. So maybe they didn't cut their price,
But somebody did.
but someone did. Yeah, because honestly, there's no.
But there will be some catch to that crayon.
It doesn't do this or doesn't do that.
There will be something.
I don't know. Logitech products, though, at least get the job done.
That sounds like that's going to be an ad by next week. Gets the job done, Bridget Carey.
So yeah, again, their teaching to code initiative isn't necessarily new, but it seems like it's becoming more sort of fleshed out.
I think this is the class that Scott's taking after presentation based on his on his schedule of
Is
events.
Scott going to learn Swift programming?
But will it work with Labo?
Ooh, yeah.
That's
I'll
what
tell you,
I
when I've been at like WWDC and they start talking about, I remember they introduced Swift the year before last year maybe, that's where I've been doing this for a long time, but even I was just like, what? And my eyes glazed over. Tim Stevens, who was sitting next to me, was apparently a big coder, was like, oh, he was super into this. So,
Oh, they're talking-
Any Swift questions you have, ask Tim.
On Swift, there's an AR kit module. So now the students who are learning how to program can learn how to program with some 3D and AR, and
That's nice.
have a
I
little
like
fun,
that.
and that'll have fun there.
Awesome.
Scott says it sounds fascinating. I think being there, you get this. Your imagination kind of starts to run. You get to see like, wow, what would life have been like if I learned this, and how would it have changed things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer that learning to code is similar to like learning how to play an instrument, or there's certain sort of non-vocal languages that are that can really kind of like aid your developing mind as you become an adult. And I remember the first time I learned to code, just very, very basic stuff at a day camp. You sort of realize that like, oh, I can speak and express myself in a way that is not just junk coming out of my mouth. And I think pairing this sort of stuff with math theory and music theory and stuff like that is really an important thing to consider in the well-rounded education of the next generation. So
What did you
I'm
learn
all
to
about-
code? Was it a game? Was it a?
It was like, I don't remember the language, but it was some sort of like shape creation. There's a lot of like vector-based kind of stuff where you would like just, it was more like just plotting points on a graph and like using language. Like it was a lot of like ENT, EXT, stuff like that, if I remember correctly. I mean, we're going back almost 30 years.
That's more advanced than what I've ever done.
Yeah.
In my middle school, we had a like a elective. It was basic. We had to save our stuff on floppies.
Yeah.
And the only mission we had to do was like draw up thing and have it animate. And I decided to draw an intro to a new video game I created based off Sailor Moon.
That's awesome.
And I called her Nina Wilder. And it basically took 7 floppies to make the whole
That's
animation.
cool.
And so I was a bit of an overachiever. What could have happened if I had this at
If you
my
just
fingertips?
stuck with Nina Wilder, what would have happened?
Next season on the CW, Nina Wilder. This will be in production in 6 weeks. Let's
I'm
go.
tuning into
We're going to make
that,
some
man.
meetings. I'm going to make some calls.
Let's do it.
Somebody pointed out, I've seen a couple people mention this, and this is important to mention, even though a $329 or $299 for education iPad is less expensive than, let's say, the original $500 iPad. You still take that. You have to add, if you add even this less expensive stylus, that's another 50 bucks. And frankly, any of the halfway decent 9.7-inch iPad keyboards are $100. So $299, $399, so $450. You're looking at $450.
Is that include a case?
Not even include, although the keyboards could be a keyboard cover case.
Yeah.
So let's say $450. That's just so much more expensive than a lot of run-of-the-mill Chrome OS systems. And that still could be a deal killer for a lot of people, a lot of school districts.
But the Chrome.
Oh, wait a minute. I see some vintage. Speaking of the original $500 iPad.
Oh my God.
There it is. This is 2010.
Whoa!
That's 2010 Dan and his giant sideburns, comparing it to, I guess, a Kindle DX, I'm going to say. I think I still have that tie. I'm still wearing that watch.
All right.
But there have been a lot of other changes since then. I'm just going to say.
Crap.
I tuck my shirts in now, for
This
example.
is amazing. So why were you comparing it to an e-reader?
This was
that was
the
the thing at the
original iPad. No
Yeah.
one had ever seen an iPad before, and we were talking about, we got one a couple of days before they went
wow.
on sale, which is rare for an Apple product. And we
Yeah.
all got a chance to make some videos and stuff and play with it. I did one on ebook readers. I think I did one on watching like Netflix and one on playing games. And before this, Jeff, you and I talked about this. We had looked at the iPad, all the specs and stuff, and all the controversy around it. We're like, oh, this sounds stupid. Nobody's going to want one of these.
It did. Yeah.
And then when I got one and got to play with it for like literally 2 hours, maybe like 2 or 3 days before they were on sale, I said to myself at the end of this little taping experience, it was like, damn it, now I've got to go buy one of these things because it was actually awesome.
Yeah, I remember having that epiphany as well. I will be the first to admit I talked so much junk on that thing for months. What the hell does anybody
not a
need
computer.
this for? Where's the
So
keyboard?
limited.
There's no USB ports on it. Anyone who buys
Still no
this
USB ports on
it. There, yeah, that's still a big issue. But man, I did a 180 in like 30 minutes.
I was at Best Buy that morning, day one, buying my own. I was like, damn it, I gotta buy one. It's one of those things that, and it's rare that you see this, it's a product that is better in person than on paper.
Right. And I think a lot of the magic there was like, it was a product that everybody needed but didn't know until
You
they
had to use it
actually
in
used
person and see it. You know what else was like that? The Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, totally.
Terrible idea on paper, awesome in person.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, you're talking about like, okay, the Chromebooks, but they're not touchscreen necessarily.
You know what? A lot of them are, and a lot of them for under $300 are touchscreen with a 360 hinge.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I'm just thinking about the creation. Like, got the,
Oh,
you
sure.
got the pen in your
100%.
hand, the pen in your hand, the making something, the connecting to the, you know.
But $450 per student versus $250 per student,
When-
that's a big difference.
being looked through the lens of a board of education, you know, no one's going to argue that Apple has made a much more sexier, compelling case. But I think when it comes down to the dollars and cents of it, you know, I just don't know how this permeates in the way that they want.
Breaking news, more expensive product is cooler than cheap product.
Yeah, I mean, that's just always going to be the case. So, yeah. So we've been chatting a little bit about Dan's. Man, those sideburns were rad.
And the soul patch, don't forget the soul patch.
God, that's so
I
amazing.
wish somebody had told me about that years ago.
So they're pivoting into some other kind of stuff about
The creativity side,
creation,
you know,
yeah.
the music, the video, drawing. So that's why I was kind of bringing up the whole touchscreen and the pen. Like, you know, maybe there is something to the layout of the device and what it can do for the extra price. But it all depends on the teachers able to, you know, create a curriculum around it, or they're all stuck in this curriculum in some schools where they have to get the testing done and they don't have time to have you spend all this time creating and going really outside the box with.
Yeah, but I find students, I mean, because I hang out with a lot of grade school students, because there's a ton of kids in my building, and they're so creative. And even if it's not an assignment, they're always making stuff. They're all makers now, and they're all creators, and they're recording their own music in GarageBand on their iPads. They're making their own YouTube videos. They're doing their own experiments, usually making slime, but that's still an experiment.
Totally.
You know, and the ability to take an iPad like this and, let's say, record some video and then do some drawing over it to, you know, animated annotation and even adding a voiceover easily, which some of these creation tools let you do. I mean, that's really cool, and frankly, that is really hard to do on a Chromebook.
And making these multimedia projects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this stuff sounds pretty cool.
The,
That they've
the
just
more
sort
you
of-
can play with, the more you can just, you know, experiment, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the tools are definitely here. I think we've seen evidence of that. the last thing they were finishing up was talking about sort of creating these interactive narrative experiences explaining, science and, sort of allowing students to express themselves in the way that, is something that other students could possibly relate to with their Everyone Can Create initiative. It sounds pretty cool.
And they're previewing it today, it says.
That seems like an
with more
app that's
content
got a
this
bunch of
summer.
stuff in it called Everyone Can Create.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I kind of dig that too, and it looks like it'll allow people to sort of create like little, presentations.
Oh, okay. Here's one we missed: the shoebox diorama, because that's a picture they have on screen, and there's a student taking a photo of the shoebox diorama with their iPad. So we had the solar system, the dissected frog, and the shoebox diorama.
I never understood the diorama. Like, what better way to explain your comprehension
By adding a little depth of field.
by like building a small representation of what you just learned? I don't understand that.
It's just to make the parents go crazy having to buy materials.
Oh God! I mean, like only one person in the history of the world benefited from diorama, and that's Wes Anderson.
Oh, there you go.
That's it.
And cardboard box companies.
That's it.
The glue stick people. You're in the pocket, a big glue stick.
So they got 300 teachers from across the country and around the world with us. Using this? Okay. Everyone can create.
I feel like this is almost a wrap
So
up
by
here.
opening it up now, that means in the fall the teachers will be ready to start actually beginning using it with this preview. Now they're playing a video of what it's like to be a teacher from the perspective of a child. I'm sure that's all kinds of adorable.
Yeah, Dan is
They
right.
do nice. That's the one shame about not having a live stream of this event is Apple does these nice promotional videos that they usually open with and close with.
Yeah.
And they're cool and they give you a different perspective.
It might be
on
online
the news of the
later.
day.
Yeah, I have a feeling they'll be right.
They'll
on
have
the
all this
website.
stuff online. I think we're gonna have clips pretty soon, and Apple is gonna post the entire event front to back if you want to sit there and watch the hour-long thing.
Right.
And I'm sure we'll have the link up for where you can watch that.
And you're right. Looks like they are wrapping up. Tim Cook is now back on stage.
Will there be a one more thing?
I don't think so. Yeah, everyone in attendance has homework.
Everyone's getting a sack lunch.
Yeah, that's it.
Scratch and sniff apple Snickers? Stickers?
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. Apple a day for everyone.
Yeah. One more things? We're going to keep an eye on. I'm keeping an eye on all the live stream live vlogs. But I don't
feel like a
expect
one more thing would be
I don't
maybe
expect a
this
big
might
surprise.
be the wrong venue
Yeah.
for something like that.
Well, I guess we're not getting our less expensive MacBook Air
Right.
or a more education-themed MacBook Air, which is a shame. But there's still 2 minutes left, so maybe they'll whip it out. But
Scott's analysis in the live chat is that Apple's his big thing was that how Apple is expanding pencil
Yep.
support and betting that it's going to help with creative schoolwork. And that new iPad looks like it's the best one for the price, like we said.
I mean, now that you can get a regular iPad that works with Apple Pencil, there's almost no reason to get an iPad Pro.
They're not going to. Are they going to sell the one that's already 2017 cheaper? Or they're just going to get rid of it.
I think this replaces that.
Yeah,
this is essentially
so there's
that,
not gonna
just
be
adding pencil support.
It's not like there's going to be like
No.
It's crazy. You're right. Scott brought up a good point. The iPad Pro debuted late in 2015, and it's only until now that Pencil is getting into more iPads and having other iPads support the platform, which is.
I mean, the Pro has bigger screens.
Yeah.
I think it has a more powerful processor and graphics. It's got the ability to display more frames. It's got a higher refresh rate screen. Those are really the main differences. And of course, the accessories that Apple makes that work with it are very nice, like the super fancy keyboard and stuff.
What does Scott mean by this? Does new iPad have a smart connector? Not sure.
Oh.
Might be like a dongle-y kind of thing, right?
So that's people have complained that the iPad Pros were frankly not the one. People were still buying the regular iPad. It was tough to make a compelling case to get the iPad Pro, especially because you still couldn't get full real Photoshop on it or real Illustrator on
like
it.
a
You had
tough
to use
sell,
the iOS
yeah.
versions, even though they have been greatly improved to do a lot of extra stuff now. This is almost, in a way, if I may make a controversial prediction, this is basically throwing the iPad Pro under the bus.
Yeah, they're kind of cannibalizing.
Under the school bus.
Oh, whoa.
That just came to me.
Whoa. You're totally right. Like, now if you're choosing between that 10-inch...
10.5.
10.5 Pro...
Or the
versus
9.7.
I mean,
if the pencil's the main thing. I mean, higher resolution, definitely cool. Higher refresh rate, definitely cool.
Right.
Is it worth, $600 or more?
Maybe that's what WWDC will hear. I don't know. Usually it's software related, but maybe they'll have like some.
No, they have a lot of hardware. Last year they had like every Mac got refreshed at
That's
WWDC last year. Will the Logitech Crayon work with the iPad Pro?
I want to say yes.
It's
I bet it
kinda,
will.
it's a software thing.
Just
I
thinking of
hope.
random questions here.
So Scott says that the iPad is really the lower price model that should have always been there, but what this means for the rest of the landscape in terms of price and storage configurations, that's still something we don't know.
Well, Apple's had this problem where they used to have a very compact product line, and everyone said that's the way you do it. You don't make 500 different models. You
Right.
make, the consumer and the low end of the high end, the this size and that size, and you have like this quadrant of 4 types of things. For computers that worked. For the iPad, it was the iPad, but then you had the Air, and you had the Mini, then you had the Pro, then you had the second size of the Pro, then you had the 10.5-inch Pro. Will they re-narrow the spigot of iPad products? And when the Apple Store goes back up, here's my $1,000 question. Will the iPad Mini still be there? Or will it be quietly escorted off school grounds?
I don't know.
Is that because it's more expensive, or it's not more expensive, but it's like the same price or something?
It's like this guy. They basically stopped updating it and just kept it up there as a legacy product. But the phones
I
are so
like my
big now.
Mini. I like my iPad Mini.
But your
but I don't
iPhone
really
10
use it much,
screen is so close to that mini screen now. It's tough to justify
It's sort of
both
an irrelevant
products.
product.
Yeah.
now,
So those little tablets are the ones that have really lost out, not just from Apple, from other people. That's why nobody makes fancy Android tablets anymore, because the big screen phones have taken that place on the low end, and the touchscreen laptops and 2-in-1s and hybrids have taken that place on the high end.
Right. So they essentially replaced, what they were really, the sort of void they were filling.
So everyone keep an eye on the
or maybe
on
they
the
just
Apple
lower the
Store.
price. I don't know. Did they ever? Would they ever?
It's a tough one. You know what?
I like to
I mean,
wishfully
things
think.
go down. The prices go down over time. The original MacBook Air from 10 years. This January was I believe, the 10th anniversary of the MacBook Air. And if you want to see a great vintage CNET video, go look up my video of that. But that was originally, I think, like $16.99 for the first version of this, and now it's $9.99. So that's a product that has come way down in price over the years. Not something you can always say about Apple products. Oh, Apple Store is back up. iPad Mini 4, I still see it. Although I don't see the new iPad on here yet. Let me see. iPad Mini 4 still there. I'm going to go to buy.
No, it's
we'll
still
be right
down.
back.
It says we'll be
okay.
back.
False
I got
alarm.
faked out.
False alarm. Yeah,
Oh,
they're still
iPad
showing the iPad.
We'll be back. All
with
right.
the,
So
A9
maybe when they
chip.
finish that refresh, the Mini 4 may be gone, or maybe not.
So, one of Scott's big wishes and dreams, making the iPad more laptop-like, did not come true today. This was not the day.
I just don't know if he's ever going to get that.
Yeah.
Unless you have a big, like, laptop base that you just clip
Right.
the
That's what-
screen into.
Yeah, and
I
that's
mean-
really what you're going to get.
Yeah.
But
So what is the hands-on session that press is going to?
so I'd
guess-
imagine they'll be playing around with some of the educational tools.
Trying the pencil
Trying
on the
out the
iPad, maybe
Trying the
the
crayon.
crayon.
Right.
Big into the crayon. I'm Team Crayon.
Your Team Crayon. If the crayon can do everything the pencil can do, I'm on board.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm more curious to see if it sort of recreates that pencil feel that you were.
Or how does it
talking about.
charge? You have to like have a separate thing for that.
I
I'd be
don't-
curious.
I don't
If it
even
doesn't
wanna
have a
think about
lightning
that.
thing at the bottom, just
Yeah.
like the other one did.
So Tim Cook is now back on stage. He seems like he is closing it out.
Lots of thanking teachers.
Oh, there's a public event at an Apple store nearby where people can try out everybody can create apps.
Yeah, I gotta imagine like that will be kind of the focus because of the, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of restriction on that where you would need to like assume the role of a teacher where like everyone can create. It seems like a more of like a sandbox
It's,
kind of experience.
yeah, playground for anyone to just
Yeah.
mess around. And now they're going to the demo room. So thanks.
That's it.
Thank you for There you go.
All right,
This has been
excellent.
a live narrated Apple event, which may be more fun than just watching these guys do their demos on stage when you're really only just watching for the demo fails.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So hopefully we're going to get to talk to someone out there very soon. We'll have to see how that shakes out. But I think, there's a lot to kind of extrapolate and take away from the event. I mean, do you guys think they've done or at least made enough of a compelling argument? I know we kind of like beat that to death during the actual event as it was going on, but do you think the argument was made that this is the sort of platform that needs to be in classrooms?
If your school district can't afford it,
Right.
that's important to pound. The software looks super cool. Adding pencil support is awesome. Same old iPad, but that's okay. But how do you make a case that you should take your limited education dollars and spend it on this ecosystem rather than something like the Chrome ecosystem or in some districts Windows ecosystem? And how do you convince a school district to switch horses if they're already using something else?
And that's the thing, and that's one major component to this entire issue. It wasn't even mentioned. I mean, I don't know. Again, like I said, we're not sort of like these experts that can comment on a sensitive topic like that. But that is the elephant in the room.
It's real. It's real talk.
Yeah.
I mean, of course,
Like,
they're a
yes,
high-end
this
product.
is great for
Yeah.
our utopian society.
And
But
that's
it's
what they've
not how
always
things
built for.
work.
It's always been magical, just works, beautiful. Life is better with our products. And
Because you're
that's-
in that walled garden where your phone and your tablet and your computer all operate off the same system, and you can only, except on the computer, you can only install pre-approved apps, and everything meshes so nicely together, which is great. But it also limits a lot of what I think students and kids are interested in, which is basically like hacking around with stuff and
Yeah.
bashing it and finding new ways to use it and basically breaking the rules as they use these devices.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's actually what is the selling point, right? Like, hey, we're not going to lower our price, but just look at how much different a lesson can be if you really get to tinker and just create and draw and make these multimedia projects. So if your school, right, has that budget, you'll go, oh man, like you can really have an immersive experience more. And yes, there are schools that won't be able to do this.
Is it carrot dangling? Is that what they're doing here?
I think we are a unique panel to talk about this since we all have young children, some of whom are already in school. So if there's anybody who's thinking about these issues and worried about them, it's probably us. I think the kids are so bombarded with high-tech, high-touch, high-design, interactive experiences all day long, whether it's on their tablets at home or video game consoles or augmented reality on the phones or just Pokemon Go on the phones. You have to somehow match that level of excitement in school.
Right.
And from what I've seen, they're still very analog in especially public schools. So you need tools like this to keep the kids engaged and help them keep up.
Yeah. Just a heads up, the store is live.
Oh, let's see what's there.
What do you got?
We can pull up maybe
There.
Bridget's screen.
Hold on, I
She'll
got
head
it,
over
I got
to
it.
the
Right
store.
now. Okay, iPad Mini 4 still there.
Yep. But there is the new
I see it says new.
indicator under the iPad, and there it is. So you're going from what it was an
iPad
A9.
Mini 4 still $399.
Okay.
Regular iPad, new iPad. So that's 2 years in a row of small upgrades that don't really change the look and feel or
Now supports Apple Pencil.
great.
Okay.
So let's see. Silver, 32 gigs, $329, 128 gigs, $429. That's crazy. Now let's look at the accessories. What's in the box? Okay, lightning cable, USB.
Man,
Now, Apple Pencil
$429
by-
for that 128.
I
is
know
just,
that's and there's nothing in between.
the one to get for the schools is obviously the 329, but it just, I don't know.
Apple Pencil is still $99. I wonder if there's an education price
How
on
did the
that.
iPad Mini 4 be more expensive? What's their reasoning there? I don't
It's an
understand
old
that.
legacy product, and that's just what it was and what it will continue to be. But I don't think a lot of people are buying that right
But
now.
I mean, is there something inside that makes it a more powerful iPad? Like, I just
No.
don't feel like it doesn't make any sense.
yeah, it's an
right
older
now.
design, and
Yeah.
I don't know. We all expected it to be, frankly, gone by this point.
Or at least lower. I guess they don't want to lower the price because they want to make this.
Right.
The whole talking point today was that this is the cheap iPad.
They don't really sunset old products in a big way. They just kind of quietly, like you just go to the website
Yeah.
one day and the 11-inch MacBook Air is just gone.
Right.
And you're like, what happened to that? What do you mean? There was never an 11-inch MacBook Air.
Mm-hmm.
It goes in the memory hole.
Yeah,
The memory
so
hole.
if this definitely makes the case for staying within the standard iPad universe, right? Because now that 10.5-inch iPad Pro upgrade, it's going to bring you up to $649 at the least. So,
Which is why the cloud storage is so important because you're probably getting the 32 gig version.
Right.
And most iOS apps are pretty light in terms of memory, which is great. But if you download a couple of videos on there, you're eating up a lot of that space. Or if you create a lot of video on it, you're going to eat up a lot of space. You're going to need that 200 gigs of iCloud space to store that.
Oh, for sure.
So still $99 for the pencil, $49 for the Logitech Crayon, which I don't see any material about yet. I just went to Logitech's website to look for it, but I don't see it yet.
I wonder if they would even have it in here.
No, I didn't see it on the Apple
Yeah.
Store yet, but I didn't do like a deep dive search.
I don't see it either.
So again, if you want to be a part of the conversation before we hopefully get someone in through Skype over the internet, if you'd like to reach out to us on Twitter, please do using the hashtag CNET Live. Tell us what you think about the announcements that were just disclosed about what this new iPad is going to look like and what it means for the educational system.
Josh Clark on Twitter made a good point that iPad discount is now $30 actually. So
Okay.
it's not the same as the $20
Yep.
before because obviously $329 goes to
Right,
$299. So hey, there you go.
But you could get that iPad last Christmas from about Thanksgiving on at different stores at different times for even less than that. So that's not even that great a price. And frankly, the $329 one, some stores just regularly have for $299. It's rare that you see Apple discounts, but there are some Apple products big box stores just generally have a little bit off on.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see the response. I mean, someone, and maybe, someone is working on that piece that sort of analyzes what the budgetary constraints of introducing something like this mean to real world school districts. I would love to read a story about that. So, perhaps, there's a little bit of digging that will get done once the dust sort of settles here. Lexi is on the line on Skype with us. What's going on, Lexi?
Can't hear you super well, but I'll tell you a little bit about where I am. So I've just walked straight into a demo room after the assembly that they called it here at Lane Tech High School. And so I'm in a room surrounded with a bunch of different apps on iPads. I've literally just walked in, guys, so I'm still getting acquainted with it myself. So maybe you can come with me and we can try and see what we can find here. So let's take a little bit more of a look. I'll try and flip the camera around and see what we can see.
It's a real creative space they got. Man, is this Apple's doing or the school normally this cool?
Just trying to move the camera around. See. Oh, you know what? It's because it's not connected. Yeah, it's not connected. So they're using Apple Pencil to draw on the iPad. Sorry, guys. Just coming in to look at this footage right here. So that's the new iPad and using pencil support for that. Doing a little bit of coloring in. Okay, let's see what else we can find. The signals are dropping in a little bit, so bear with me. Okay, let's walk over here. There's some musical notation and some composition that we're doing with the iPads here. Some customization templates. We can do a couple of cool things. This kind of looks like GarageBand. Yes.
Is this
I can hear you.
Is this the school's band room? Like where are you?
Yeah, so it feels like a band room. It's got a couple of computers up top. It's got a lot of, musical iconography on the walls. Here you can see like a bunch of bands up there, screen printed. There's something that says the Chicago Music Exchange, Be Inspired. So this very much looks like a music room. There we can see Scott Stein just walked in the room as well. We have a couple of costumes here. I'm not sure what's going on here, guys. What's going on here with the
If you look at
costumes?
the product down here, this is a creative writing assignment where students are tasked with turning a modern take of Romeo and Juliet into a newscast.
Oh, that's why you're dressed up as Romeo? Yay!
So we're taking and quickly adding professional features such as picture-in-picture, news, authentic-looking news titles, and even cutaways to create that dynamic effect.
Nice.
We can quickly.
Better run along. Okay, thank you.
That's pretty cool.
So that's a quick, yeah, that's pretty cool. There's like, you can see like a lot of costuming here, some period costumes, just kind of cool, kind of crazy. There's a little photo booth happening up here too, as you can see. Don't quite know what's going on, but apparently I've been told they're using Pages
Presenter mode.
and the presenter mode. So, I see. They're using it as a teleprompter, so they're reading lines to each other in costume. Very nice indeed. I like that. That's cool. So then the idea is that students are going to be making films using Pages and iMovie. So that's what this room is all about. It's very much about media and creating content. Over here we can see some of the projects created on iPad. That's something that they wanted to show us here. All right. So this is the room. There are a bunch of other rooms, but I'm not sure if I can actually go into any of the other ones, because we've all been given this kind of class schedule that was emailed to us. So mine actually said room 154, so did Scott Stein. I know a bunch of us have gone up into different rooms. Everyone else here, like Shara and Connie, have gone into different rooms. I'm going to see if I can sneak into another room, maybe.
All right.
Because this is just a little bit about that. But it's a long walk between rooms. This is like long school corridors. It's a long way, though. So I don't know if you want to come with me as I walk and try and get into another room or not. But I know some rooms, they've definitely told us that we can't film inside. So I think if I walk in with the phone, it might be... they might be a little bit suspicious. So Shara just said she's in another room. She feels like she's in a math class because there's a lot of, they've got a lot of maths going on, a little bit of geometry probably in there too. Definitely feels like I'm back at school. I'm kind of getting a little bit of a, when you have like those weird school dreams about, I've got an exam to do. I feel like
Is that
guys,
happening to you right now?
It's crazy.
What do you mean there's a test today?
Yeah, it totally is. But I want to kind of go and see if I can get more of a hands-on with the new iPad, because I know that's probably the big thing that you guys want to see. It doesn't look all that different, obviously, from the other 9.7 inch, but let's have a look. Scott here is just taking a little bit of a hands-on with it now.
And you know what we'd like to see, if you can find it, we'd like to see the Logitech Crayon, if anybody has that there.
I would love to find that myself as well, Dan. I don't know if there's in this room, but you can see that's the existing Apple Pencil and the new iPad.
Ask Scott
I
if
wanna
if the pencil feels the same way it does on the iPad Pro. That was something.
Hang on,
we-
Scott's shooting his own video while he's on this video for us while
Yeah.
testing the pencil.
This
It's
is a
doing his
meta
great-
That's some
video.
multitasking right there.
He's actually recording a video right now, so I'm
No, you
So
should
try to
totally
distract him.
You should distract
I'm
him.
totally
Just get up behind him
totally
and go-
distract him while he's doing that.
Yeah,
but
just
let me
poke
go
him.
and have a look. I might actually try and use it myself.
All right, right
see
on.
if I can see. Well, Celso is filming at the moment. One of our cameramen is filming, so I don't want to interrupt his shot. But there is a
So we're
pencil
filming,
right
someone
here.
else filming
There
Scott,
is a
filming his own
pencil.
video of the iPad.
We're our own worst enemy, is what's happening.
I know.
This might be Inception, I'm not really sure.
It's so crowded. It's so busy. It's so crowded here. Everyone's trying to get hands on. But visually, the pencil looks very, very similar to the previous version. I'm just going to try and see if I can get my hands on. I'm seeing.
Yeah, we're interested to hear
as well.
what the feel of the pencil on the iPad screen versus the
Yeah.
iPad Pro screen. The pencil in the Pro had a great, realistic graphite on paper drag that really felt like you were really writing. And I'm interested to hear what it feels like on the regular non-Pro iPad.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the big question as well. So I want to see if the responsiveness is there. I want to see, if all of the tracking and stuff is there too. We didn't see any in the announcement, they sort of just touched on the pencil really quickly, just talking about how it is compatible with the new iPad, and just talking about low latency, things like that. But there wasn't really a big section on it. There was no kind of like, whiz bang, here we go. The iPad itself, though, I noticed that when they did their actual announcement, it was just pretty much a video. They came back and they quickly touched on specs. But overall, this launch event has been really, really focused on the teacher experience, the student experience as well, which is definitely kind of a little different to how we've seen other Apple events in the past. You know, we haven't talked much about the product itself. I'd say it probably took up about 5 minutes overall of the total time. The rest of the time was talking about new apps, ways that students and teachers are going to be using the iPad and Apple software in the classroom, and a little bit about how, some of the use cases and studies from teachers around the world as well. I'm still waiting on that Apple Pencil, guys. I'm trying to get it there.
Lexi, for you, was there something that really kind of like stood out for you that, you're really looking to kind of get your hands on, maybe something that, or something you're seeing there that maybe they didn't touch on during the presentation?
Yeah, so the thing that I really enjoyed from the presentation, I think the one that got a lot of reaction from the crowd as well, was when they were talking about augmented reality. Obviously, AR Kit is a huge push from Apple, and it's dominant platform, and they did make a point of that. They did an actually really interesting demo. It was only in a video, unfortunately. It wasn't actually live on stage, but they did this cool dissection of a frog on an iPad, to show off all of that. It was crazy. The crowd gasped. People were kind of really shocked that they were showing a frog dissection.
Yeah.
It was actually really cool to watch. You weren't actually, going to have to. They were talking about reasons why you would want to do that on your iPad versus actually in real life.
Sure.
So that was kind of cool. I wish they showed a little bit more. Oh, actually, I want to show you. Actually, here we have the tablet. Here we go. All right. See if we can actually. This is the pencil. I'm trying to get in a little bit while they're filming. I don't know if this is going to work, guys.
Welcome to the creative space for drawing. Can I walk you through the new features within Keynote?
Yeah. Can you show us some of where I can annotate using the pencil?
Sure, absolutely. I'll walk you through it. Select the new Keynote, the Keynote app. It was upgraded today. And select photosynthesis. That's a lesson we're doing. And we believe that observational drawing within a science class is crucial for students learning. So our students have already done some research on photosynthesis, and they might normally go in and select they might normally go in on the internet and find an image to show photosynthesis. Now they can actually draw what they believe they have learned. So tap the pencil to the screen.
All right, let's see if I can. A little bit of
notation. Draw some roots into the soil.
I'm going to draw some roots in.
Okay.
These don't really look like roots, guys. Right. I don't know if you can see what I'm actually doing on the screen.
A little bit of a glare, but
it's a little bit of a glare. I'm trying to tilt it so you guys can see it. Right. Yeah.
It's a little better.
It's kind of hard over Skype. Yeah.
One of the cool things you didn't even know that you were doing is you're not only creating a drawing, you're also creating an animation. And so the students can animate their work. I'm going to hit done. They can animate their work and present it to the students. I'm going to look over your shoulder here. So select animate.
All right, so I'm now going to animate the little roots that I drew.
All right, you hit off of it. We're going to hit it again.
Try it again.
Hit animate.
Animate. All right, I got it that time.
And select build in on the left.
Yep.
And then choose line draw. And we're going to hit options and just slow it down a little bit. So bring it over to about 5 seconds or more.
You can do that on iMessage now too, right?
Okay,
you can
good.
draw little drawings
and then we're just going to
play
see
it redraw
and
itself
the
in real
screen,
time.
you'll see your animation come up. Cool. And so a student to do a voiceover or put in text and talk about photosynthesis, what's going on.
Okay. So that was my little animation with the Apple Pencil. Okay, I definitely noticed a difference using this screen versus the iPad Pro. Just even though I know I wasn't fully resting on it, but it definitely did have a little bit of a different tactile response. I need to obviously have some more time with it to kind of give you an idea of what the real differences are. But yeah, even in my very limited interaction just there, it did feel different. It didn't feel as responsive. But that was just in this app. So I would definitely want to do a little bit more if there was another area that could do sketching or something like that. I want to have a bit more of a place so I'm not just doing annotations and things.
Sure.
As you can see, I don't know if you noticed that I was having a little bit of a trouble kind of selecting that option.
Yeah.
The annotation in. Yeah, so it could be user error. Totally could be user error, guys, because I do not put that past me. But, even just in that little limited interaction, the fact that I had to go back and do it again, might be some indication. But again, I want to make sure that I have this in a controlled environment to be able to do it. It's crazy in the demo rooms, as you know, everyone's kind of jostling for position. They kind of only want to show you the demos that they're running, rather than you necessarily kind of going, oh yeah, let's just play around with this totally completely myself.
Yeah.
And have some good time with it. But I do think that we will be getting access to one shortly, so stay tuned. Fingers crossed we'll be able to get you some more impressions on that soon.
All right, Lexi, thank you so much for calling us. We really appreciate you getting in touch and showing us that live demo. That was awesome.
Great. Thanks so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of the show.
All right. Thank you so much to Lexi for calling in. We've got some interaction on Twitter that we'll maybe get to before we say goodbye. What are you seeing there?
Okay, well, a lot of people are chiming in on their thoughts after this whole presentation. We got Ben Hill saying his 2 cents. Apple supporting Pencil in their productivity suite will help educators save significant money because they're avoiding that 365 Office subscription cost. So
It's interesting.
That was,
Although there are you can use the free cloud-based version of Office, or frankly, Google Docs, like we all use. I know a lot of schools do use Google Docs and Google Drive for sharing things.
A lot of negativity too. Mike saying that unless Apple gives away this all for free, there's no way it's going to make a dent because. So he was pretty like wah wah. We got Declan Flynn. Didn't live up to the hype to him. Pretty much the same as before. If you couldn't afford iPads yesterday, you can't afford them tomorrow. Another one saying that for homeschoolers, pretty interesting. That obviously because it's always that's a whole different conversation too. Gabriel, we wondered why the iPad 4 Mini. It's coming with more built-in memory, 164 gigs. That's why it's going to be more expensive. And Stefan also jumped in and said that too, that because the new iPad is 128 gigabytes, is $429. So yeah, it's about the more onboard storage there. Mark was saying, I plan to get a new iPad, but for my kids, Chicago Public Schools is a Google Apps district, which is where they're at. So switching costs is going to be prohibitive. So as impressed as you can be with the dream is awesome to have kids be that creative because that's what you always want. Sometimes money does come to the end of it. And folks like Zachary were, giving just want to shout out.
You got it. Yeah,
so there you go.
Very nice. If I could shout out a tweet, I'm going to give a plug to our old friend Joanna Stern, who tweeted a very good point. She said, "Is it just me, or did today's Apple event make you just want a MacBook with a touchscreen more than ever?"
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, again, that seems to be, there are a few configurations, like Scott's sort of dream hybrid, or getting one of these MacBooks to support touchscreens where, it just seems
we had a device, we had a clip-on
is.
device last year that we tested where you plug it into the USB port on a MacBook Air and you put this little bar right at the bottom of the screen. It shoots up a little light field and you break it with your finger.
It's like
it didn't work. No.
Yeah.
I did look up some prices
Okay.
while we were talking to Lexi, and you can go to Best Buy right now and get the iPad Mini 4 with 128 gigs of storage for $299.
Okay.
So Best Buy often is one of the only stores that has actual everyday discounts on Apple products. And if you go to B&H right now, they've got last year's, the 2017 9.7-inch iPad, 32 gigs, the one that was $329 until today when it was replaced by the new $329. They're doing it for $289 and
But
have
no
been for a
pencil
while.
support.
Sure. But if they get the new model in, maybe that would be the same price.
Yeah, interested to see, Lexi sort of gave us her initial impressions about the Pencil, but she didn't seem super psyched out of the gate, again, super early, but it will be interesting to see what she thinks down the road and what Scott thinks as they get to play around
Apple
with it
wanted to
more.
give you a feeling today.
Yeah.
They wanted to make you think back to your own childhood. People on Twitter right now are talking about their first computers. We were talking a little bit about that during the show. And it made you have that wishful thinking of how life would be different if you could quickly create and make all these things and not just be reliant on whatever was the PowerPoint shared computer that you could do your presentation on. And so it's really a wonderful thought.
Yeah, how practical,
Right.
like we said, how practical that's going to be, we'll sort of have to wait and see.
I don't think that the MacBook needs to have a touch screen unless you can totally take that keyboard off. Then we're talking about the Pro again,
Yeah. Well, this has been great, guys. I hope everyone learned a lot today. I know I did. Thank you so much for being here. That will do it for us. We appreciate you for staying around with us and tuning in for these 2 educational hours. Be sure to stay here right at CNET for all the latest video and pictures that's going to come out of this Apple event in Chicago. Don't forget, we have a full crew on the ground reporting and filming and writing down their impressions. So make sure you stick on the website so you know just what the latest is out of there. Apple's going to be posting the entire show later on today, so we're going to let you know where to find it on CNET. So stick out over there. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
Imagination is the key because you're using your knowledge, what you know, to make something that no one's made before.
If you're creative, then other people will be inspired by you, and then they'll keep pushing forward. So if you'll spread it to your friends, and then your friends spread to their friends, and then all over the world, everyone will have a happy life.
It's like a whole land of imagination where you feel like you can make anything or invent anything you want, and you make something that nobody has ever thought of. When you grow up, you're gonna be a pro. So you better get creative right now so you can remember those things, what you did from the past, carry those things, bring them to the future.
You can make anything you want, and you can make that change the world. One small thing could change the world, like one person can change the world.